Now I would like to invite the chair, David Borrow, Ambassador Samuel Bromberg, MP David Smith, Rushan Abbas, and Mubarak Bala on the stage. We will have the celebration of 5-year anniversary of the IRFBA Alliance.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rehak. Good morning. My name is David Burrows, advisor to the chair of the Alliance. It's a great honour to chair this session to celebrate the 5th year anniversary of IRFBA, Articulating Alliance. We'll talk about that name and how it originated shortly. We're here with David Smith from the United Kingdom, the Member of Parliament for Northumberland and the UK Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion or Belief. Also, we have Mubarak Bala, who we've heard already, the President of the Humanist Association of Nigeria. Real privilege and honour to have you with us, Mubarak. We also have Rushan Abbas, the founder and executive director of Campaign for Uyghurs, who's just travelled back down from the United States. And we'll hear more from them, and also as well, indeed, quite recently, the chairperson of the Executive Committee of the World Uyghur Congress. All very welcome. But first, I'd like to come to a good friend of us all, of the International Religious Freedom Movement. Ambassador Sam Brownback previously served as the US Senator of Kansas from 1996 and then Governor from 2011 to 2018 when he was appointed the US Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom during the first administration of President Trump. And Sam, you, of course, were integral to the establishment of the Alliance and indeed its acronym of IRFBA. Its launch in Washington, D.C. on February the 5th, 2020, not so long ago, really. But how and why did this happen, this alliance? And what was your ambition for advocating, not least for those, as we've already heard, who are persecuted for their faith or belief? Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that. And if I could just start by thanking all of you. I feel like I'm looking at the heart of the religious freedom movement globally is really in this room. I've worked with a number of you over the years in various capacities. You never quit, and you're never going to quit until everybody does have religious freedom around the world all the time. So just I'm in awe of you. And a number of you have experienced suffering yourselves or within your own family for religious persecution. You know this story personally, and it boils within you, and it boils within me. The stories I get, and I saw a video just this last night of an Ahmadi Muslim in Pakistan getting shot just for being an Ahmadi. And it just makes my heart sad and my blood boil when I see those things, and I know it does you as well, and we're not going to stop. This did start, and I would think people in this room would understand this probably better than most, but this started with a divine inspiration. This wasn't my idea. I was in prayer and was ambassador at the time for religious freedom and got the notion of an alliance to push forward, alliance of nations to push forward for religious freedom around the world. And there may be some crowd just say that and they kind of go, yeah, okay, whatever. But that's how the idea came about. And it wasn't just one divine inspiration. It was actually a second one. I was going to get it launched and going in July of 2020. And if you just think back, July of 2020, we were in the heart of COVID and nobody was meeting anywhere in July of 2020. But that was the initial date that we were going to launch the event with the first meeting. We were going to have it in Washington of whatever countries would come on board. And I literally in prayer another time, it says, the thought hit me was to start it in February around the National Prayer Breakfast. And we did, and it wasn't later that month that the world shut down. The whole world shut down in late February, early March from COVID. No meetings were happening anywhere. And we had launched the first one with 17 countries coming together at that time. Secretary Pompeo, Secretary of State at the time, spoke to the group, and 17 countries came on board and said they'd be a part of an International Religious Freedom Alliance. And we got it launched. And then the world shuts down. And we discovered the bane of my life and yours now, Zoom. And we started having Zoom meetings all the time to discuss what is it we could do. I'd never had a Zoom meeting before then. After that, we went online and did that, and we got 2,000 plus religious prisoners out of jail that year from countries that held them under the threat. And it was us as nations coming together and sending letters to these countries and contacting them saying, if these religious prisoners die in your prison because of COVID, that you wouldn't let them out, then this blood's going to be on you. And we got over 2,000 out during the COVID time period. And you've continued, Robert, with a number of others to get people out of jail. But my bigger point is this. It is our moment globally. Robert and others have described the authoritarian axis that's facing against people of freedom around the world today. It wasn't 2 months ago in Beijing, Xi Jinping had 18 leaders from around the world, most of them dictators, gathered together, talking about and moving on a new world order. You face it directly in Europe, in what Russia is doing in Ukraine. We're hearing, and we will hear from more people. This axis of authoritarians cannot stand the notion of religious freedom. They cannot tolerate it. It is an existential threat to them. And if it's an existential threat to them, it should be one of our main tools that we use as freedom-loving countries to push against them. It should be a major tool of ours. And we have got to move out of being too often where I think we're seen as a boutique human rights issue, or of kind of, okay, politicians will come and talk to us because, yeah, I don't want to get on the wrong side of the Buddhist or the Catholics or this or that group, fine. But that's not who we are. We are at our core the basis for human rights in the world. We've got 80% of the world's population has a faith. We've got a community here that wants religious freedom for everybody everywhere, and we should use it as a sword. This is our moment to step forward and to stand up to the authoritarians with the issue of religious freedom and demand it. And demand that in Tibet, if they do not support the Dalai Lama's middle way of a community within China that's self-governed, then we should say we're going to start recognizing Tibet as an independent nation. If you won't go this way, then we're going to move against you. And then too, there's a group called the Falun Gong. They haven't been mentioned here yet today. Most persecuted group inside of China. Just an amazing group of people. And why do the Chinese hate them so much? Why does the Chinese Communist Party hate them so much that they do organ harvesting and things you wouldn't even dream of in a bad sci-fi movie? You wouldn't even think of those sorts of things. Because they fear their appeal to the people, the Chinese spirituality of the people. They fear it. We should be standing with them as allies, but not just under the topic of religious freedom, but as allies in global security standing against the authoritarian regime. This is a key issue. Ronald Reagan used this, going at the Soviet Union, which, by the way, we have now, and Vladimir Putin, somebody who thinks that the fall of the Soviet Union was one of the worst things that happened in world history. I would think there are a number of people in this room who disagree with that idea, and that are millions of freedom-loving people that have got their freedom after the Soviet Union fell. And a number of you lived in the totalitarian state that you didn't want to live in and be a part of. Ronald Reagan captured the idea of the Jewish refuseniks and brought them forward and saying, why can't these people practice their faith freely? Why won't you let them emigrate? And it undermined and delegitimized the regime. It also galvanized people around the world to ask, why isn't this happening? And that's what we must do in this moment. Take center stage of this topic and use it for freedom. Use it for the moving forward of democracy. Use it to push back against the authoritarians that are on the rise in the world. You saw just this last week, I believe President Trump will come on more and more on board with religious freedom. He launched in on Nigeria, a topic that a number of us have been pushing for some period of time. I think this is a ripe moment for this movement to take this center stage.
Thank you so much, Sam, for your inspirational words. And it's always at a birthday party, it's good to have the godfather here. And it's great to have, of the Alliance, it's great to have you, of course. And we'll hear a little bit more later. But with respect to both Sam and indeed with respect to David, we have amongst us here some real-life reasons to celebrate the Alliance as we hear now some personal stories, fighting persecution, imprisonment, and the value of multilateral democracy. So first, Roshan Abbas, you were born in Urumqi in Xinjiang, and you've become one of the most prominent Uyghur voices in international activism, not least following your sister's detainment by the Chinese government in 2018. And we want to hear your voice now to us all. Roshan.
Thank you. Dear honorable guests, Ambassador Rehak, and the Special Rapporteur, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. The individual freedom to choose what we believe, how we believe, and why we believe is one of the major achievements of the modern world. It defines our sense of liberty, of the freedom of conscience. Yet today, this foundation of our freedom is under attack, a disturbing trend clearly visible in the persecution of the Uyghur Muslims. Uyghur identity is being erased through a state-sponsored system. Our religion is criminalized. Mosques are being demolished. Language is being banned. Wealth and the legacies are stolen. Millions are dragged from their homes, arrested without due process, sent to concentration camps and the prisons, and they face torture. They receive long sentences for no crime other than being Uyghurs and practicing just normal religious beliefs. Families are shattered. Almost 1 million Uyghur children have been taken to state-run orphanages. Uyghur women face forced sterilization, forced abortions, and forced marriages with Han Chinese men. In some regions, birth rates dropped down to almost 0%. This is personal to me, and thank you, Ambassador Rehak, highlighting my sister's case. In September 2018, at Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C., I sat in a panel like this, talked about the mass detention of the Uyghur people, outlining the fate of my in-laws. My husband, Abdul Hakim Idris, is among us today. 24 members of his family went missing. Only 6 days after that speech, the Chinese government retaliated and arrested my own sister, Gulshan Abbas, a retired medical doctor, not a political person living an ultra life, just caring for others. More than 7 years now, that's almost 2,800 days that she is in jail and sentenced for terrorism. And her crime is being my sister. This is the personal cost of exposing an authoritarian regime, but I will not stop speaking because silence is the oxygen of the tyranny. It's time to cut off that lifeline. In 2024, 3.4 million Uyghurs were forced into government-mandated factory labor feeding to global supply chains, making all of us complicit with China's genocide when we use their products. And this is not distant, it's in our homes, on our hands, the clothes we wear, the purses we use, shoes we wear, and even the mug we drink from. Your cotton, your tomatoes on your spaghetti, your favorite seafood, even solar panels for the clean energy, all tainted with blood, sweat, and tears of my people. My sister could have made that shirt on your back. And the uncomfortable truth is, when we remain silent, we become the enablers of this genocide. Václav Havel warned us about regimes like this, and I quote, "Because the regime is captive to its own lies, it must falsify everything. It falsifies the past, it falsifies the present, and it falsifies the future," unquote. For a time, those lies have worked. The world wanted to believe the camps were just temporary, but that's not how genocide works. The Uyghur model of repression has spread from Tibet to Inner Mongolia, to Hong Kong, and now Taiwan and beyond. Beijing has perfected total control in my homeland and now exporting to all around the world. They have the vision, strategy, and the means to spread this oppression globally. It's no longer about the Uyghurs anymore. It is an assault on human dignity and democracy, a threat to humanity and to the freedom we have worked so hard to build. As Ambassador Sam Brownback always say, China is waging a war on religion. They are testing the limits of what we will tolerate, shaping the world our children inherit. So join me to defend humanity, protect democracy, and to preserve the freedom we all cherish. We are all in this fight together. We defend the freedom we breathe because we are all responsible for what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshan, for your dedication, and of course, Guhan as well. The reasons apparent of why we are here and why we exist as an alliance. I'd now like to turn similarly to Mubarak Bala. Mubarak, as we will know, was sentenced by his home Kano State High Court to 24 years prison for publicly expressing atheistic views and for leaving Islam. And after international advocacy, including from the Alliance, was released in 2024. And indeed, significant efforts from our German colleagues is now living there in sanctuary. Mubarak Bala.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I want to take you back memory lane, how I got to the situation that I am now as a defender of minority groups, be them tribal, be them religious in Nigeria. Growing up, some 2 decades ago, I was studying chemical engineering, and everyone was asking, what would your career be? This one would say the pilot, this one medical doctor. And I said, I am growing up to be a rebel. And everyone looked. They thought it meant maybe I'm carrying a rifle and bombing everywhere. But I knew what I was saying. So when I ended up in a psychiatric hospital a decade later, I asked my family, do you remember that meeting? They said, yes. I said, this is the rebellion. Then I reminded them, Boko Haram was killing people at those times. This is 2013, 2014. And I asked them, what was happening? There was no Boko Haram 2 decades ago, but Christians are being killed. And there is no culprit, it's us. It's our culture of hate that led to that. When our favorite Muslim candidate lost elections, what happens? We find Christians to kill. My people would find Christians and kill, destroy their businesses. When there is an eclipse, moon eclipse or solar eclipse, then there would be riots. It starts by prayers in public, then it ends up becoming a riot, and then Christians get killed. When we wanted Sharia in 1999, we wanted to bring back the Sharia to replace the Nigerian constitution in the northern region. This is the Sahel region. Riots took place, several riots. Hundreds of thousands got killed. There was no terrorism then. It was us, normal Muslims. And I told them, this is how I knew I would end up, but I know I may die because of these beliefs that everyone must tolerate and have a community or society that would be more cosmopolitan, more tolerant of everyone. I could have been very comfortable with being an atheist and hiding it from my family. But Boko Haram started killing people publicly, gingering and also calling for more recruitment. And people were really gravitating towards that because we were taught to hate. Before they got to the killings, they've already saturated the atmosphere with the hate. Sometimes it's not just religious, it's tribal, it's cultural. And we are the most isolated, I would say the most landlocked region, even beyond Afghanistan. That's the Sahel region. All the social indices you could think of, maybe poverty, we are the poverty capital of the world, the least educated people in the world, the highest child mortality rate, and also the highest natality rate in that region. And I hope, I fear, but I hope we don't end up becoming a Somalia or Rwanda or Afghanistan. But this is where the trajectory is leading us as a people. It's lawless, it's ungovernable. I'm glad that our advocacy and our actions online have drawn the attention of the American government and other well-meaning people. But still now you have protests by my people. Donald Trump, president of the US, said he wants to kill terrorists. But my people are protesting that. Why? Because when we catch terrorists, we don't kill them. We reform them. We just make them to understand that jihad is not now. The jihad is for later. We are preparing for the jihad, but it's not now. So these terrorists are warriors, culturally recognized as just misguided. But we don't jail them, we release them. I was in jail when they would come to jail, and then they would be reformed, and then they would be taken out of jail. And I was serving 40 years. It was 24 plus 16 years. So I have already diagnosed my problem, our problem as a culture. It's a culture of intolerance, it's a culture of hate. Before these people, the minority tribes, before they were Christian, they were hunted like animals, and they were sold to the Arab slave traders and later to the European slave trade. It has always happened. And I hope someday I will go back and continue with what I'm doing. Certainly, we now have the internet, so it's safer, much safer where I am now, to keep advocating. And I hope before the region fails, because I fear this is what would happen, the region would fail, it's ungovernable. Even the president says he doesn't want to delve into the northern Nigerian mess because it's our culture and it's our responsibility to change our mindset before we reach that. I'm lucky so far I've been alive with your kind of advocacy and support. That I hope one day you and the world recognizes that there are a lot that's happening there. It's slavery, it's killings, and then there are 14 million children out of school. 14 million. And I've advocated for a decade plus now to get these children back into the system because this is the ready recruit. This is what feeds the recruitment of the jihadists. So every week you have a new terrorist organization in the region, but it's not known mostly to the conventional media. So thank you for the Americans that have recognized that killings are happening. When they recognize that when the Christians isolated themselves and pushed back towards the hill, that's the central Nigerian plateau, then the terrorists have no one to kill but ourselves. So now they're killing Muslims. So we are crying that they are killing us, but we are the ones that created the monster. And I hope it happens in future that we reform ourselves through these kind of advocacies and conferences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mubarak, being such a voice of hope, not just for your release, but on behalf of others, and resilience in the face of hatred. Thank you. Finally, in terms of our, as it were, celebration of those that matter most, we're going to be celebrating the release of Pastor Lorenzo. Cuban pastor Lorenzo Rosales Ricardo was violently arrested along with hundreds of others after participating in peaceful protests that took place across Cuba on the 11th of July 2021. He was eventually tried and convicted of false charges of disrespect, assault, incitement and disorder in December 2021. Following international advocacy, led by CSW and over many years from the Alliance and from successive chairs. This is a long-term ambition and goal for us all, including indeed his wife visiting Ambassador Rehak after the last conference in March. A public letter was issued from the UK Foreign Secretary, and we're very grateful for that. Collective advocacy, and indeed, then Pastor Lorenzo was finally released from Marvede prison on the 17th of January as one of 553 political prisoners chosen to be released as a gesture of goodwill, not least to the Trump administration. We're now going to see what 1,000 words can better tell with a video of his release.
Pero tú no traes la maleta porque... Él te dejó todo. Él te dejó todo. Mi vida.
Tío, ven acá, ven acá.
¿Qué?
Voy ahí. Voy cuando él salga. Mi amor. Pero graba bien.
Ya tú lo dejaste grabando, ya yo lo veo. Hijito.
Quédate ahí, quédate. Y yo, ponte ahí que yo quiero estar los 4.
Me pagan. Me pagan por ser camarógrafo.
Quédense ahí, quédense ahí.
Very good. Pastor Lorenzo has done a video, in his words, thanking the Alliance, which we'll be playing over the coffee breaks for you to be able to see his words. And we're in solidarity with Pastor Lorenzo, along with other prisoners of conscience. Now, finally, follow that. David Smith, Member of Parliament for North Northumberland and Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion or Belief in the United Kingdom since December. Over to you, David.
Well, thank you, David. And it was incredible to see those images. So I'm not going to try and follow that. Your Excellencies, friends, colleagues, it's lovely to be with you here in this beautiful setting, and especially to follow such brave and powerful speakers that we've had already this morning. I'm delighted to be here as the UK Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion or Belief. Some of you may know part of my background, having only been elected last year to become a Member of Parliament. I've spent 25 years working in international development for Christian charities like Tear Fund and Bible Society, some of whom you will know. And so FORB, Freedom of Religion or Belief, is something that's very close to my heart, as I know it is obviously for you, especially those that have been touched personally by persecution on the basis of your beliefs. It's almost a year since I became UK Special Envoy last December. And in that time, I've been very pleased to meet a great number of partners, experts, those working with civil society, many of you who are in this room, to build my understanding of the opportunities and the challenges that we have together in this issue. And this includes the important work of Article 18 Alliance, led ably by Ambassador Robert Rehak. And Robert, we're so pleased and thankful and grateful for the work that you have done in leading us in this alliance. Maybe we should give Robert a round of applause, because I don't think he's had one yet. You don't need me to tell you about the scale of the challenge that we face, but some facts do bear repeating. Aid to the Church in Need's 2025 Religious Freedom in the World report estimates that 5.4 billion people, nearly 2/3 of the world's population, live in countries where serious FORB violations occur. I was at the Pew Research Center in Washington a couple of weeks ago, and they estimate that the number of countries with high or very high levels of government restrictions on FORB is at its highest level since 2007. And social hostilities involving religion are also on the rise. Worsening authoritarianism, as we've heard, including restrictions on freedom of assembly, war and conflict and increasing religious nationalism are driving persecution on the basis of religion or belief. So it's in the context of these challenges that I was very pleased to launch for the first time the United Kingdom's FORB strategy for foreign policy. That reflected in July when we launched it, the idea that FORB should be central to the UK's foreign policy. In fact, freedom of religion or belief demonstrates the core principle that human rights are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. I think it was Ambassador Brownback that was touching on this earlier. You see, if you have no freedom to worship, you have no freedom of assembly. If you have no freedom of belief, you have no freedom of conscience. If you have no freedom to share your faith, then you have no freedom of speech. If you have no freedom to practice your faith or belief, you are not equal in dignity and rights. Now, the strategy that we launched for the UK in July comprises 5 strands. I won't spend 10 minutes on each, you can relax. But I'll just say quickly that the 5 strands are about multilateral advocacy. So I was at the United Nations last week or 2 weeks ago giving a FORB statement for the UK. Targeted bilateral engagement, so we have 10 focus countries that we as the UK will be working on. Mainstreaming FORB across our foreign affairs work, so it's really important to us that freedom of religion or belief is seen within our own foreign affairs department as central. Increasing civil society engagement, many of you are here, and strengthening coalitions for collective action. That's what we're doing right now. That's why I'm so pleased to be with you now. The UK is a very proud member of the Article 18 Alliance, as well as the International Contact Group on FORB, and our resolve remains steadfast. I'm glad to say that the UK has been a committed member of the Article 18 Alliance since its inception, and together we've achieved remarkable progress. It's right that we celebrate that today. It's just 5 years, but the membership of the Alliance has grown from 22 members to 38, plus friends and observers. And that speaks to our shared commitment that FORB should be central to the kind of world that we're trying to build. I pay tribute to our chairs and members, and especially to Ambassador Brownback for his vital role in the establishment of this alliance. We've achieved a lot. Joint statements have condemned anti-Semitism, the persecution of Christians, and anti-Muslim hatred. The Alliance have challenged violations across the globe, as we've heard, including in Tibet, Ukraine, Nicaragua, and many other countries. These actions demonstrate the strength of our united stance. Many of you are involved in the working groups that we have. They show how states and civil society experts can work together to practically address shared challenges such as FORB and the digital age. We all know that artificial intelligence is a growing threat to freedom of religion or belief. Most importantly, as we've heard, our efforts have enabled lives to be changed. In 2023, engagement by the Alliance helped to secure the release of, for example, Hannah Abdi Malik in Somaliland. And I'm delighted that Mubarak is here, and Pastor Lorenzo, as we've seen in the video. The UK was delighted to play a small role in campaigning for their release, including, as we heard, a letter from our Foreign Secretary. These victories remind us that when we act together, we make a real difference. So as we look to the future, these stories, the story that Rishan shared with us as well, underline just how much work remains to be done. And as we look ahead, our mission must evolve with purpose and urgency. The scale of the challenge demands action. The Article 18 Alliance isn't just a coalition of the willing, it's a force for change. And I'll just very quickly, to finish, suggest 3 areas of focus. First, we've got to expand the alliance. I'm so pleased that so many countries are present here. As Rushan says, silence is the oxygen of tyranny, and we need to come together and grow our alliance. Secondly, we must continue our targeted efforts. Reform of discriminatory laws and championing of individual cases of persecution remains urgent. And thirdly, we must mainstream FORB in foreign policy, as I was suggesting that we're trying to do in the United Kingdom. This is not a niche concern. If there's one thing that you hear, and I know you know this, so I'm preaching to the converted, which is quite appropriate at a FORB conference. We know that this is not a niche issue. We know that this, as I was saying, underpins everything that we want in the world. It underpins freedom. So we must stand with that idea and pronounce it proudly. Persecution on the basis of religion or belief drives displacement, fuels extremism, undermines prosperity. And our strategy in the UK recognises that. I'll just finish with, Sam mentioned a previous US president. I'll quote another. President Carter, just to keep it, nice and balanced politically, and particularly as a Labour Party politician. President Carter said, "Because we are free, we can never be indifferent to the fate of freedom elsewhere." Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank all our panelists so much for their voices for freedom. And lastly, to David, thank you so much for what you said, indeed, UK's role as a founding member of the Alliance and its important role in its future as well as its past. But look, I'm not sure your traditions for anniversary parties. Mine involves always cake, and we have opportunities with the wonderful hospitality to have cake over coffee. But over that time, I want you to share celebration with images that we do have on the screens. Faces of Freedom, which I want to thank Yusuf, who, due to the shutdown, weren't able to join us today from the US, showing released prisoners of conscience. Also, there's videos of released prisoners, thanks to CSW and to ADF, all for their help to put that together. And that's why we want to dedicate the session tomorrow to individuals also who are still incarcerated for their faith or belief. So do look out for the information. Every session we'll be dedicating to an individual who remains incarcerated. We want to dedicate to work together for their release, and that would and is the best anniversary gift that we can do going forward beyond this conference. But also, on the subject of gifts, we do have a present to award. And for that purpose, I'd like to invite Miles Windsor, Strategic Advisor to Ambassador Robert Ray Hack, to introduce that award.
Thank you, David. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and dear friends, it's my honor to introduce a new tradition within our alliance, the Article 18 Alliance Award for Distinguished Endeavour. And I want to express my sincere thanks to Ambassador Jahak and the Alliance Steering Committee for their encouragement and thoughtful input as this concept took shape. Coming as I do from the civil society side of this cause, I can attest to the fact that awards for activists are not exactly uncommon. There's no shortage of awards and ceremonies throughout the year, and my LinkedIn feed keeps me well informed of all such accolades. If I sound a little cynical, it's only because I'm never the recipient. Of course, it's no bad thing. After all, moments of recognition can serve to inspire, encourage, and re-energize those laboring at an arduous and often dispiriting coalface. In this long and difficult struggle, confronting persecution, promoting peaceful coexistence, and defending freedom of conscience, progress is hard won. Victories can be hard to come by, and setbacks all too frequent. As the saying goes, we do this for the cause and not for applause, but we are human beings, and sometimes a little recognition, a moment to affirm that our efforts matter and that they are seen, helps us to get up and face the next challenge. This new award was conceived in that spirit, as a way to recognize a group that is often overlooked and rarely celebrated, the public servants, diplomats, and government representatives who, with quiet dedication and strategic vision, work within the machinery of government to advance freedom of religion or belief. The award is not only a means of recognition, but also an opportunity to inspire one another, to highlight creative, courageous, and effective approaches that can help each of us consider how we might use our own platforms to move the needle towards greater liberty, justice, and peace. The Article 18 Award for Distinguished Endeavour will be presented annually at this ministerial conference to an individual or small team from within an alliance member state. the recipient will have developed a policy, program, or initiative, or achieved a diplomatic success that has meaningfully advanced freedom of religion or belief in the preceding 18 months. The qualities we seek to recognize are originality, creativity, strategy, and dynamism. Those moments when conviction and imagination combine to produce real and lasting impact. Whether through the implementation of a bold new initiative, the development of a quiet but transformative policy, or principled diplomatic action that changes lives, such as efforts leading to the release of a prisoner of conscience. These endeavors represent the very best of what this alliance stands for. Nominations will come from across the alliance and from the Council of Experts, with the steering committee selecting the recipient. And we are especially delighted to begin this tradition with a truly brilliant and inspiring recipient. The profile of this year's honoree is perhaps slightly different from what we might see in future years as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the alliance. I'm sure that you may have heard of them. As nominations open for next year's award, I encourage you to think of those within your own administrations whose endeavors meet the award criteria. Those who remind us that promoting religious freedom is not merely a part of the job description, but rather that the pursuit of dignity and peace for all people is a cause worthy of all the excellence and all the effort that we have to offer. It's now my pleasure to invite Ambassador Jahak to present the inaugural Article 18 Alliance Award for Distinguished Endeavor.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is only fitting that the very first recipient of this award is someone whose wisdom, energy, and faith helped to bring the alliance itself into being, Ambassador Samuel Bromberg. Ambassador Bromberg's life of public service now spans 4 decades. Elected first to the US House of Representatives in 1994 and then to the Senate in 1996, he quickly became known as an advocate of human dignity and freedom. In the Senate, he also emerged as one of the foremost champions of international religious freedom, playing a leading role in the passage of the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998. After serving 2 terms as a governor of Kansas, Ambassador Bromberg was appointed by the President as the US Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, taking office in 2018. It was a crucial moment. Ideas were circulating in Washington about how best to build international momentum around this cause. But Ambassador Samuel Bromberg, under his leadership, those ideas took form and took flight and became reality. He convened the first ministerial to advance religious freedom, which brought together governments, civil society, and faith communities from around the world in common purpose. He inspired the creation of this very alliance, IRFBA, today the Article 18 Alliance, United Nations around a shared commitment to uphold freedom of religion or belief for all. And since his time as ambassador, he has not retired or even slowed down, but rather established and drove forward the International Religious Freedom Summit alongside with Christina Lantos-Sweat. His work has had a concrete impact on real lives, hundreds of lives. And through it all, Ambassador Bromberg has remained a man of deep faith and humility, always quick to give the credit and the glory to God for any success. Ambassador Bromberg Your vision has not only inspired governments, but has built a global community, a movement that continues to grow, to serve, and to stand for those who voices are silenced. We are very privileged to continue the work you began and to enjoy the benefit of your collaboration, wisdom, and support as we do so. On behalf of the Article 18 Alliance, it is my great honor to present you the inaugural IRFBA Award in recognition of your extraordinary leadership, creativity, and devotion to advancing freedom of religion or belief for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. That's beautiful, and I love it that it's with an angel with wings. I think we can all agree we need those right now. This is just such an important thing we're about. What you're about, I just can't describe it as more. I don't know that there's anything more important you could be a part of than what you're doing. And I'm deeply honored by this. And we are at a spiritual spring. Here we are in Prague, of the Prague Spring, to stand against communism. I declare that there is a spiritual spring taking place now, today, here and around the world, and it's going to throw off all of this oppression. We're going to stand and stand together someday, and it's going to be clear air, and we're going to be able to stand freely and believe what we want to believe and have our own soul be able to pursue what it wants to do. And we got to say it, and we got to believe it, we got to work, and we got to pray. And we can get it done. God bless you all. Thank you. Thanks, Robert. Very nice. Thank you.